Hi, and welcome to another session of our NJCU Spring Ed Tech webinar series. We are here with Renee Howard and Joyce Ayim that are going to be presenting a dynamic session for us today on rapid feedback and motivation in engaging learners in a virtual learning environment. So I'm going to turn it over to Renee Howard and Joyce Ayim to introduce themselves to us, give a little bit about their professional backgrounds, and then also really explore with us some wonderful information about doing this with learners in a virtual learning environment. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Renee and Joyce.
Want to go, Joyce?
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, this evening. My name is Joyce Ayim. I'm a math teacher and I'm a student, a doctoral student at NJCU. We're just here to share with you and also to learn from you, because this is something that came out, an idea that came out of myself and Renee talking over things that we're experiencing in our virtual classroom. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Renee Howard. I am a math teacher for middle school. I've been a math teacher for the last 18 years. I'm currently a doctoral student along with Joyce. I'm in the same cohort. And like she said, this was a workshop that we were just brainstorming together. And we said, you know what, let's see if we can make a workshop out of this. So we're hoping that this is just as informative to you as it was to us while we were creating. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to share the screen because I like to, we both like interactive, being math teachers and all. Is it possible? I'm going to send in the chat the link so you can join. Did you receive the link? It's in the chat. And that is the code that you put inside the link. A as in apple, I as in ice cream, E as in elephant, C as in cat, Y as in yo-yo, O as in orange.
And we would like you to let us know how you're feeling today. You can skip it, but we would just like to know how you're feeling today.
Okay, so now when we go to the next screen, if you weren't able to put in the code would be in the right-hand corner for you to join as well. Okay, so we're going to start the class. All right. And of course, welcome once again to Rapid Feedback and Motivation in a Virtual Learning Environment. Go to the next slide. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about the following. What is feedback? Why is feedback important? Feedback in a virtual learning environment, smart feedback strategies, and online feedback tools. Those are the items that we're going to talk about today.
Okay, all right. So as we settle down and get ready, let's take a couple of minutes to complete this. Let's know what you would rather do, whether you would actively monitor a standardized test for 3 hours, or would you rather grade student essays for 3 hours? We just want to know ourselves. So we are going to participate in it.
All right. Give you another moment or two so I can show you your responses. Let's see which one you chose, A or B. Seems like it's even. It seems like it's even. Would anyone like to discuss? Would you want them to expand on their choices, or how would you like to move forward, Joyce?
Yeah, share the screen. If you can share the results, we can move on with that.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone raised their hand. Colleen. Yes. Would you like to?
Hi, ladies. Thank you. I guess, okay, so I feel like watching that teacher stand there and actively monitor standardized tests, it looks a little boring. The other woman who's covered in papers is more my style. I like to get messy. I create projects and then more projects and more projects. But I also feel like grading student essays really does help. It helps me as a teacher get to know the students a lot better. Like, who's writing really well, who maybe needs help, who has great ideas, but they can't maybe bring them through, who's like really well versed in all of it. I feel like it really helps me to know the students better if I grade and am covered with papers.
That is that's a beautiful point. And although I'm a math teacher, my first day with my students, I always ask them to write an essay about themselves. And it's very interesting when I read about them. It's the first time I'm meeting most of these students because all I teach is 8th grade math. So I only meet the students when they're in 8th grade and around about to leave the school. But reading their essays and all that, not to grammatically correct them and all that, but just to know them is an experience. I think I also chose that instead of actively monitoring the standard test. Yeah.
Right. I must concur. I would rather grade maybe not essays, but maybe more of how to just with the things that they like, so I can incorporate it into the classroom to make it so they can connect to the actual activity or topic that we're discussing. So a get to know you type form is what I do at the beginning of the year as well. But anyone else would like to share any comments or ideas with us at this particular time? All right, let's move forward.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. So again, we would ask you to respond to this question. When you hear the word feedback, what comes to your mind? Like, what comes to mind? The first word that comes to your mind is what we want you to share with us today. The word feedback, what comes to your mind?
Are we typing that somewhere? Or?
Yes.
Did you log on to the peer docs?
Oh, there we go. Answer here. I see it. I'm sorry.
Right on the right-hand side.
Yep.
So, yes, thank you very much.
All right. I'm gonna show some of our responses.
Yes, let's see the responses.
I like that. The first one, helping hints, helping students to get where they need to be. Guiding questions. I like that. Results. Reflection.
Those reflections.
Comment on the student's progress.
Yes.
Oh, I like that one. I think of stars and wishes. What do I do well and what do I need to do more of? I like that. I like those. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Good. All right. Thank you very much for responding to this question, because feedback can be helpful. We know it's helpful for both the teacher and the student. And feedback can be defined as information about a person's performance of a task, which is used as basis for improvement. Now, on the left side, we have all the words that we could have come up with. And then on the right side, you see the gap, the bridge, on the bridge, but the gap between the student and the teacher. So we can say feedback provides direction or a roadmap which can motivate an individual to accomplish a task by thinking about, like as a teacher, by thinking about the long-term effects of learning something right the first time, by getting specifics to the students in time and encouraging openness in your learning environment, you will be setting yourself and your students up for success. So feedback should not be just thought of as just one time and that's it, but you should look at it as a long term. The learning journey is a whole long term thing that you want to gradually bring the student from one side to where you are. All right, we're moving on. All right, So now we're looking at the learning loop. As we take a look at from the learning loop, we can see feedback happening at a very one of the initial stages. This is because our teaching has to be responsive to whatever the students are giving back to us. The teacher must adapt the teaching based on the responses that the student is giving to them. If this is not done, then we can go on and teach and teach and teach and not really be hitting the needs of the students. So regular and specific improvement points should be used by the teacher as feedback to the students so that they can fill in the gaps that they need to be able to go over the bridge that we just saw in the previous slide. So it's very important that we notice that feedback is happening at a very, or one of the initial stages of the learning loop and not way back when the child has already grounded a particular path of knowledge which might not be the right one. Okay.
Thank you, Joyce.
So how do we do this? Because in this learning environment, virtual learning environment, feedback is very important. So giving feedback might sound simple, but it is actually one of the most difficult parts of a teacher's duty or the daytime life. Because you have to be very careful that you cannot see most of these students in a virtual classroom because some of these districts, we don't have the policies to have the students have the cameras on. So you have to be very careful when you give these feedback to the students. The students are under a lot of pressure to perform well. Therefore, even the most careful worded suggestions can sound like an attack to them. So the good news is that there is a way we can do this, which is using smart feedback. We want to be specific. We want to be specific and give specific directions to the student. We cannot just say, oh, correct, this is right, this is wrong, good job, and just leave it. But instead, we should focus on, instead of focusing on the mistakes, we can provide steps on how the student can improve so that the student can visualize the desired results that the teacher is seeking for the student to reach. We should make sure that the feedback is meaningful. You must have clear goals for students so that the feedback that you give to them is meaningful to them. They know that this is the objective for the day. So this is why the teacher is giving me this feedback. It has to be meaningful to them. It should be adaptable. The student, or the feedback must provide the student with the ability to change plans and move forward. The teacher should be able to provide different prompts and cues to the student as a guide. If the student is going in a direction that you know is wrong, or there's another better way that the student can go, you should provide that for the student. So it has to be adaptable. It should be something that the students can adapt with it, and even you, the teacher. It has to be respectful. Feedback does not have to be a horrible experience to the student. It must be respectful, but at the same time, it has to be constructive. You have to give a constructive feedback to the student. And timely feedback given immediately is best. Research by G. Wiggins suggests that the more delay that occurs before feedback is given, the less improvement there is in the achievement. And as teachers, our hope is or our goal is for our students to achieve and improve on their performances. So let's think about something else that Wiggins said. He said that teaching does not cause learning. as teachers or as educators, this might be a very painful realization that our teaching does not cause learning. He said, learning is caused by learners attempting to do something and getting feedback on the attempt. So the students attempt to do something and then they get that timely feedback as to what they can do to make that attempt even better. So learners need endless feedback more than endless teacher. And I think we can all agree with that in a virtual environment.
Proceed.
Yes, Professor. Yeah. So with the timely feedback, this brings us to the virtual classroom. So we are talking about the synchronous learning, where we can all agree that learners need endless feedback in a virtual classroom more than they need teaching. So endless teaching in a synchronous learning environment will not produce much results. We can begin to replace the endless teaching with activities that will encourage the students to attempt, to ask questions, and to receive the necessary guidelines for them to succeed in learning.
Sorry. You ready to go to the next slide? Yes.
The next one. So it's important to recognize the unique nature of providing real-time feedback in a virtual environment where technology tools mediate between the student and the teacher. So in the virtual classroom, we have oral feedback, which we can give through real-time audio or video conferencing with our students. And we can also give written feedback through chats and other online resources that we will look at later in this presentation. Yeah. Okay. We can move on to the next one.
All right, so we're going to do face-to-face versus the virtual classroom. Face-to-face. So face-to-face, normally face-to-face takes place in several different types of ways. Whole class instruction, one-to-one individual instruction, peer-to-peer, that's normally in small groups, or indirect feedback from the teacher. What do I mean by that? You know how when you're in a class and you're working with a particular student that's having a problem, and you're going over the process and having that dialogue, and by chance there might be another student who might be sitting right next to the person that's having the same exact problem, afraid to speak up, but is able to use the same tools that you are giving that student to advance or to actually do the assignment in which they were stuck at, so it's really a peer-to-peer in which they're overhearing the teacher instruct them of how to move in the right direction. And sometimes they actually join the conversation when you're asking the student the question. So it's more of a small group within a small group embedded. So those are things that normally happen in a face-to-face classroom, where there's a lot of interaction between the teacher as a whole, a teacher as individuals, or a teacher as peer-to-peer. But in a virtual classroom, the response is kind of different. Students primarily work alone. They work in isolation. They have less chances or opportunity to work as a team or as a peer-to-peer. It's a little bit more awkward due to the fact that you can't use some of those clues, by facial expressions, or as a teacher you can look at someone's face and say, I think Johnny's having a problem. But with the virtual classroom, those mechanisms that we normally use as teachers are not as available as if they were in a face-to-face classroom. So this presentation would help us look for some of those clues, or give more of a collaborative feeling when answering questions or having questions about a virtual classroom. All right, so I would like to take a poll. It says, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is feedback in your classroom? On a scale of 1 to 5, how important is feedback in your classroom? Give you a moment to log in.
I think we can use the barcode as well, Renee.
Say that one more time, Joyce. I did not get you.
Yeah, the barcode. Can we scan the barcode and respond through that?
I'm confused, Joyce.
So I'm asking about the barcode on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, you're right. The QR code. I'm sorry.
We can scan that as well.
The QR. I'm sorry. Is it working? I think I might have problems with this. I think I'm having problems with this, so please forgive.
Okay.
Is it in the chat? Is it possible you can put either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5?
Yeah.
How important is feedback in your classroom?
Good.
Thank you. It seems like it's very important. Could someone expound on why it's important in your classroom, and how does it help you, by any chance?
Hi. So for me, feedback, because I am also a math teacher for about 10 years now. And for me, feedback is very important because that's the only way that I could, like, when I'm trying to help my students and I can't help them individually, that feedback is where I use it in order to guide them to where I need them to be. So that feedback is a way that I could interact with them and differentiate and mediate their thought process without necessarily stopping my class to speak to them individually.
Thanks for sharing. We appreciate that. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share, by any chance? Anyone else would like to share? Okay, we'll move on. No pressure. All right. The importance of feedback.
Colleen had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I guess I kind of feel a little guilty about the fact that I put a 3 and not a 5. But here's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
The two subjects that I teach are technology and library skills. So I feel like I'm always talking with the kids, and I feel that I don't know. I feel like the subject matter that I teach does not necessarily warrant you're doing a great job, or you need to. And I feel like it's just more of a just personal interactions that we have with each other. We talk about books.
Mm-hmm.
Coding is so exciting for them, just like intrinsically, that I feel like they don't even need me to say you're doing a good job, because they feel that they're doing it. If they're bored with it, then we can have that conversation. Some of them don't thoroughly enjoy coding, but I have to be honest, I haven't really met a kid who doesn't really enjoy it so far. But some of them might say like, "Oh, I'm tired of doing this," but then you can move on to something else. But that's why I say a 3. I know feedback is important for me as a student,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at right now, but I feel like my content does not really warrant a lot of feedback on performance.
Yeah, I can relate to what Colin just said because I facilitate the coding club in the school, and we do robotic 101. And the students, I hardly give feedback in that setting because it's something that you're not teaching it to them; they're teaching themselves. And this is where Wiggins saying comes in, that the students do not really need a lot of teaching. But with the coding, as they are teaching it to themselves, is interactively, and they can see when they're going wrong and somehow correct themselves by changing some numbers, moving blocks here and there. So the subject area can also determine the amount of feedback that you're giving. But we cannot overlook the fact that any opportunity that you get to give feedback to the students, it has to go. And the same way with Juliet too, we as math teachers, we know because students already have some foundational math skills that might not be the correct one, but it's, so you always have to look at what they're doing And I remember I was talking to Renee, we were talking about what?
Here,
How teachers, square root, how teachers use the example of 2 raised to the power 2 when they're teaching squares. And we're saying, is it just let the students think is multiply 2 by 2. And forever that is stuck in their brain. So you give them 2 raised to the power 3 and they'll all give you 6. And this is from the choice of examples that was initially used to teach them. Now, if there was a formative assessment done, the teacher should have been able to see that and pick it up and know that, oh, the students are thinking I'm multiplying 2 by 2. Because once the student leaves the class without any correction given, it's cemented in their brain, and they come back and they even argue with teachers about what 2 raised to the power 3 is, because the initial, like the first time they learn something, that's it. That's a groundbreaking thing for them. So feedback in a math environment is very important. Like, no, it's not this, but let's do it this way. Let's explaining it to the child so they can get the right thing the first time. Otherwise, we lose our students. Yeah.
You know what? I want to piggyback on that. The reason why I think feedback is so important is because you're guiding the students to have that self-talk. Once they're able to have that self-talk, they can regulate themselves. And so we can get to the stage of where they are in coding. And I think due to the fact that a lot of students don't have the confidence to have that self-talk that helps them to be self-regulated, we kind of drop the ball. So feedback is that extra support that helps them feel confident in what they're doing and also speak, talk out their problems, because I think for a lot of students, they want to be perfect. And that's the problem. They're not perfect. We're all not perfect. I make mistakes purposely so they can find the mistakes. So I want to show them that as your teacher, I can make mistakes too. But it's through the feedback, it's through the comments, it's through the conversations that I can move from making a mistake to, correcting my mistake and looking for clues so that I won't make that mistake again. And that's what feedback can do. Feedback is like that hinge that can make a child that goes from being unconfident about something to like, okay, I understand some of it, so I'm going to try. So like Joyce said, it is a bridge, but how we create that bridge and the conversations we have to make that bridge is very important to the student. And every student is not the same. So what might work for me may not work for Joyce or you, Colleen, or you, Juliet. It's individualized, just like your fingerprints. But we have to start at the initial stage of feedback. So I just want to put my 2 cents in. All right. So the importance of feedbacks in a virtual classroom is to create connections with the student, provide reflection opportunities, which I think is very important in the learning process, prevent errors and misconceptions, just like Joyce was talking about the square. I normally teach the square of anything as an area formula so that they know that all sides are the same. So if you have to find the area, that's the information that's in the middle. Just to give them something concrete to relate to that abstract point of view. It motivates the students and it encourages the students to their own learning, make that bridge of being dependent to being independent. Okay, can you do me a favor? I need you to think of a situation in which you were given good feedback. A situation when you're like, that makes sense.
Okay.
All right, so what makes good feedback? Can you tell me what, in your opinion, is some characteristics of good feedback?
All right.
I have an idea.
You have an idea?
I have an idea. Do you want us to write that on Pear Deck? I'm sorry.
If you don't mind.
Oh,
And you can share it
no
too.
problem. I'm sorry. Let me go to Pear Deck. I seem to be, oh, there we go. Thank you, ladies. All
You can
right.
share it as well.
Okay.
If you want to share, you can share it as
Yes,
well. Just, this is informal.
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's fine. I'll write it first so I can
All
think it
right.
through.
Okay. Okay.
We have a response from Dr. Dennis Tate in the
Hmm. I like that. Giving positive and constructive feedback. I like that. And I'm going to show what other people wrote as well. Hmm. I like that. That's a true math teacher right there speaking. The top one, right? The more than one. Okay. Yes.
I like my teachers to be truthful. I want them to be genuine, you know. I don't
Mhm.
like any icing when there shouldn't be icing on it.
Yes. Yes. Like a roadmap. It seems like a roadmap. Would anyone like to expound on what they presented here or anything before we move on? Would you? Because I know I'm gonna say for math, I know it's important to show more than one solution because maybe that other solution might give that child that aha moment than what you originally thought.
Yeah.
I love when kids tell me, "Oh, it doesn't make sense." Go ahead, Miss Knight, you can explain it. I'm like, "No, no, no. I want to figure it out. Let's work together." And then you hear another child say, "Yeah, that kind of makes sense." I'm gonna say, "So as long as you can prove it and it makes mathematical sense, how can I say you're wrong?" Just encourage them to take that leap in their thinking process, which at times our students are kind of afraid to do because they want to be correct
All
all
the
the
time.
time. All the time. Thank you so much for sharing. Would anyone else like to say anything regarding this? No. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Right. The characteristics of high quality feedback. All right. It must connect with the students, provide reflection opportunities. I think that's very important. Prevent errors and misconceptions. I think that should be done immediately. I don't think we should wait. Motivates the student. It helps build up their confidence and encourage students to learn on their own. Self-regulating. I think that's the ultimate goal in all subject matters, not just true for just feedback. I think that's what we want for all students. All students. Right? Rapid response. All right, so with rapid response. Joyce, you gonna take this one?
Okay, I'll take that. Yeah, rapid response. So, what's we're talking when we use the word rapid, we're talking really about real time, instantaneously. Okay, so we're talking about the teacher giving this real time feedback to the students so the students can modify their thinking. But this feedback has to be constructive in a way that it lays down a roadmap for the student to be able to modify their thinking. So rapid feedback is a collaborative approach to learning and adapting to learning strategies in the process. Rapid feedback lets students take concrete measures and timely measures so that they can have deep thinking about the processes that they're going through and to be able to move from one step to the other.
All right. So we've been talking a lot about feedback, and John Hattie, who is a professor, have been studying this for the last like 25 years, and he actually was looking at all the factors that influence children's learning. And as you can see, it goes all the way down from the television all the way up to collective teacher efficiency. And as you can see, feedback is 0.70. So that's saying that when a child or a student or a learner, I should say, is able to understand at that particular point where they might make improvements or to enhance their thinking, if we address it right there at the moment, we can kind of elevate them to think a new way or to use those tools that we have talked about and apply it to a new situation. Whereas the conversation allows the student to have a voice, and the feedback gives them a chance to apply what they're saying and what the teacher is saying to a new understanding. And I think that is powerful by itself. Rapid feedback is a collective approach to learning and adapting to learning strategies and processes. So having that real-time feedback can adjust how a student performs. And sometimes the effects or outcomes are immediate, and sometimes it just takes, a little bit more trial and error. But I thought that was very important that feedback has such a high percentage, if we were talking about percentage, as far as applying to a child's learning or what they accept as learning. I wasn't aware that there were 4 levels of feedback. I knew about the general concept of feedback, but the 4 levels of feedback, I like the way it was broken down. It starts for where am I going? It sets up the students for their goals, what they need to get from point A to point B. How am I going? This is where we have a lot of students saying, I don't understand what we're doing. Can you explain this to me? A lot of students get caught in that particular stage where they can't move forward to where do I do next. And I think feedback, if we address it at the right stage, we can kind of guide the student to move to the next level. Like the task level. The task level is how the tasks are understood and performed. The children, I noticed, especially in a virtual classroom where there's a lot of talking between the student and the teacher, that the student will basically okay you to death, like, oh yes, Ms. Howard, I understand this. But when it comes time to performing, the process level, they're kind of confused about that, and that's a good juncture in which feedback is given. Instead of saying, oh, you need to do this and need to do that, maybe ask questions of, okay, I understand that you did A and B. How did you do A and B? And how would we, just asking those questions to see where the students particularly are to where they could be. And sometimes the students are able to answer that on their own. I know in the processing level, when they get the 2 levels confused or they get the process confused, I'll tell them in a minute, oh, you don't need Miss Howard, you can do this on your own, just to give them that confidence so they can go into the self-regulation level. Because when they're able to do that, they can find their own mistakes. They can say, wait, let me go back. I remember when you said, because that's where we want all the children to be eventually, to be able to find their own mistakes, have self-talk so they can make that correction. So these 2 levels, the process level and the self-regulation levels, are very important. Are very, very important, which could then lead to the self level where they can personally evaluate themselves. This is also a good level when you have peer-to-peer tutoring, when they ask those questions, because children are harder on other children than the teachers are to the students at times. And you're not, for me, there's times when I'm saying to myself, oh, I didn't know that you picked that particular item up, and they're able to evaluate their cohorts or their the students as well. I think that's very interesting, especially when they get to the self level. I think that's our ultimate goal, and I think that's very interesting when a child is able to be self-regulated and they're able to evaluate themselves at the same time. And in math, that happens very far few in between. So, as math teachers, we get excited on stuff like that. Any questions? Any comments? No? Okay. All right. So after, looking at visible learning and how it affects the learning process, I thought of it as a seesaw. Feedback is that hinge that allowed the students, like I said prior, to have voice of what they really don't understand. And as a teacher, we can kind of guide them to a place of not really understanding to, I kind of get the information, but maybe I need more practice. It is like a fulcrum to where they could be and where they are. So I think that's very, very important. And let's be honest, we can give all the feedback in the world, but the student has to be open to that feedback. And sometimes as teachers, we have to make it unique to them and their understanding. It may be as simple as, oh, you know how to do this, or did you think about this, to going into details of how we can move them from the unknown to the known. So I think feedback is the hinge, like I said, or fork on, to help the students move from one level of understanding to another level of understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
So now let's look at some of the strategies that we can use to make the feedback we give in a virtual classroom effective. Because just giving feedback, any feedback at all, does not mean that it's going to take the, or let the students go through the process that Renee was talking about. Ask themselves, where am I going? How am I going? Where to next? Like, to go through those 3 questions of self-examining themselves. For them to be able to do that, the teacher who is acting now in a virtual classroom as a facilitator more than somebody who is teaching must plan effectively. You should have your plan, like your lessons should be planned. You have to first have a relationship with the students, because I was telling Renee that we normally take feedback from people that we like easier than people that we really don't have a relationship with. So when the teacher has a relationship with the student, where the student knows that this is coming from a good place, accepting it and working on it is easier. It's very important to set clear learning goals in the classroom. It's important that you model it for the student to see what you want them to do. And you can use small groups as well to differentiate, so that at a particular time, you don't have every student working on one activity that you need to give feedback to. You can differentiate the instruction in a way that you can have students working on adaptive learning resources, while you have a group that is working, and you can actually do the feedback in real time with them. Because if you have 30 students, we have to be very, it's not practical to be able to give real-time feedback to all the students in a day when you have 90 minutes. And the 90 minutes is not all the 90 minutes that they're doing the difference. So once you differentiate it and students are doing different activities, then you, the teacher, will have more time with a group of students on a particular activity that you really want to assess them on, to see whether they get, like, they really understood your modeling and where you want to take them to. Peer-to-peer feedback is very important. You can use that in your collaborative small groups, where the students can collaboratively give feedback to themselves. Already they have a relationship with each other. So as I said, taking feedback from them, from each other, is much easier. They can say, they can use even some words you will never use to correct a student, and the students will laugh over it because they have a relationship with them. So we can really create our groups in a way that we have students who can be teachers within, or facilitators within a group, and give feedback and try to direct the students. And the next slide shows different activities that we can use, some activities that we can use. So effective planning is vital to virtual learning environments. If we intend to give back to all our students at the same time, we might not be able to do so. So we have to plan in a way that we are giving effective feedback to a number of students at a time. For me, or I don't know, we can talk about this. What do you think? How many of us think we can really give 30 students feedback in real time before the end of your class? If there's anyone, you can chip in here and there. Colleen, you want to say something?
Again, I'm not too sure that I can speak as a math teacher or a teacher, a classroom teacher for that matter, because for me, I have kids coming in and out at all different levels all day long. So I might have a kindergarten come, they see me twice a week, once for the library skills class and once for computer class. So I don't know really how, I mean, for me, I guess most of the feedback would be kind of unfortunately, but it would be about maybe behavior, like, or, okay, let's sit down and talk about this. But I try not to arrange my class so that I ever really need to say that, because you're
Right.
coming to the library, you should be walking around, you should be talking to your friends. Um, so I don't know how
Yeah.
well that applies to what we're talking about. But I guess just having a nice relationship with the kids and talking with them in a neutral way about what's happening is also building relationship
Relationship
with
with.
them and giving them nuances regarding, what do we expect of you, and what do your peers expect of you, and how can we all kind of behave in a way that is like positive and forward moving for everyone.
Yes. Discourse in the classroom is very important. It's a way of feedback, which is very important. I think we have Dr. Samantha Barnett's hands up. Yeah, you can say. We have, oh, somebody's hand is up to speak. Okay.
I think that's just her picture.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, that's her picture. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So it's very important to also give the student choice. Okay, provide choice for them, an environment where they can have peer-to-peer discourse, which is also part of giving feedback to each other. Thank you. Okay, we can move on. Now, we're going to take a look at some of these motivation, feedback and motivational tools that some of us are already using. If our districts have them subscribed, or some of us are paying for it, so we can give the experience to our students. So we'll go through a few of them, and we're encouraging you. Oh, we have 10 minutes. Okay. This one.
So we're going to just breeze through some of these tools. The first one is Peer Deck. That's what we're using today. I like Peer Deck because it gets everyone involved in the conversation, not just, calling on names or whatever. I think it's a real good apparatus, especially if you want like the whole class opinion. You can see it, we can comment on it, and we can just move on. All right. So I'm going to go into the next one. We're going to try to speed through this, right? The whiteboard. The whiteboard as a math teacher is my favorite. They just added to the whiteboards. You can add comments like you love it, you can work on it, but you got to pay a little fee for that one. But basically, the site itself is free. I love it because for math teachers in general, I'm sorry, I'm kind of biased, you can see how the children are writing out how to solve a problem, and you can have conversations with them, and sometimes those conversations can bleed and help other students as well. So that's one of my go-to, the whiteboard.fi. Live chat. One thing I love about the virtual classroom, I'm able to hear from the students that normally do not like to talk. They like to text. And sometimes their information is astounding. You're talking and you're like, oh, no one's listening to me. And then something is said or something is typed and you're like, oh, they understand the concept. So I love the texting feature because it allows everyone to have a voice and everyone to have a chance to participate. Sometimes the kids even get upset like, oh, so-and-so is talking too much. Well, write it in the chat so I can acknowledge you as well. So it kind of evens the playing field for all the students in the classroom.
All right. So Nearpod is just like our peer deck that we talked about. It allows the teacher to teach, to assess, and to connect with the student. It's a very simple concept. The teacher can create interactive presentations with the students and have a collaborative classroom space for them virtually. It's just like what we're using now. And then we talk about class kick. We can move on. Yeah, class kick.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What I like about class kick is that, so this is free. It's a free digital formative assessment tool. So as a math teacher, I like this because, I need to be doing my formative assessments in a regularly. I have to be doing that. What I like is that with the touch screen, the students are able to actually write on it. So on the right side, you can see students' work actually, and you can give individual feedback to students. Quickly, we're going on. And then we have Class Dojo and we have Seesaw. This Class Dojo, these ones you can connect students and teachers as well as families together, both of them. They all have portfolios where you can assign work to the students and you can share the responses with the families at home. But right now they're all home, so you can share it with the family as well. And this is something that we all use. If Google Classroom is your LMS, then that's what you use most of the time. Use the short questions to get students to talk to each other, respond to each other, and you can also give feedback through that. You can grade, which is not a real-time feedback mode, but you can use that as well. So we're really talking about the short answer questions where we can all give real-time feedback.
Okay. And we're going to end the feedback tools with IXL. Joyce and I love IXL because it has concepts such as real time. We can see where the student currently is, currently having trouble or if they're progressing well, and we can message them directly. And one thing Joyce and I was talking about, we can also create a special breakout room for those individuals that had problems with that particular task. So our piece of resistance is IXL because we're able to use all the things that we talk about in feedback and apply it in a real world situation and actually address those problems before those misconceptions becomes conceptions. I love it. And it's for every subject as well.
Every subject, yeah. It's not just for math, it's for ELA, Spanish, social studies, science, and all that. And it gives recommendations. It is a great thing. You can have your charts drawn for you. You can print them out. It recommends what the students should be working on, the pre-skills and all that is a fantastic thing. And I think it's something that most teachers can use. Right.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go to, you want to go to questions and answers because I know we're towards
we're almost, So the questions and answers, we're going to use a DIY feedback resource that we created using Google Slides. So we have this link, which we will put in the chat. And this is, you can use any of the G Suites to create your own collaborative environment for students to work together. So in this, let's see, the last one. I will share this link in the chat so that we can all go to it and we can just show you. You can put your questions in there. We have a question there, but you can put a question in there as well.
A 2-for-1.
Yeah. So I have the link here, and once you click on this link, it's going to bring you to this interactive slides that we use mostly in our classroom with our students. And students are able to start, what I normally do is assign different questions to different students. So I'll be like, so and so students, you guys should be working on slide 3 to 4 or something, and so they can collaboratively work together. So, okay. If you have any question, you can put the question in the chat. You can put it on your collaborative. We're there with you. We can see what you're doing. And what we do is, since we can see what you're doing, we go in and then So I go in and I'm just, oh, did I do something? That's one thing that is very easy to do.
Well, this was great. I think Renee and Joyce, you guys did a fabulous job. I think the slide activity here at the end was something fun, and it's a different way to collect feedback from students that everybody can engage in at one time, yet it's unique enough to where everyone has their own individual slide. And I could see students being excited about this, maybe like actually modifying this slightly to incorporate maybe a little bit of their personality in the slide, the colors, right? Their modes of expression, hyperlinking pictures or other types of videos in there. And I could see this being like a very interesting tool to use, especially with learners that, you know, might be hesitant to actually speak out, but they'll put some feedback in here because they feel like everybody is also doing the same thing and it's not like they're being singled out. So I think this is great. I also thought it was very interesting that you made this point on feedback and how it kind of is a pivot point for student understanding and actually learning, because in a sense, to me, it stood out that everything kind of effectually hinges on, you know, the feedback that's taken place during instruction. And so I think that was a really great takeaway for me. I think you guys did an excellent job. And now I'm not sure if you would like to address any questions or any comments or feedback that was left for you in the slide deck, if you would like to take a moment to do so. But where can people go if they would like to have access to your presentation today? Are you going to provide that to us in a direct link, or are you going to provide a QR code or some other method?
We can just share the link with you right now. And
Yep, you could share it right now in the chat if
Yeah.
you'd like, and then we'll make this also available for other people that may be watching this webinar asynchronously. And now if people have questions that are watching this asynchronously, what are two ways that people can get in touch with either one of you, Renee or Joyce? Is there an email that you would like to provide, or an other form of communication, such as a website?
So
I guess,
we will provide our emails in the chat and also attach it to the slides so that anyone who goes in can have access to the emails at a later time to access any questions.
okay, sounds like a plan.
That's great.
Renee, you can add yours, and I'm going to add it to the slides as well.
Okay.
You just have to open up your share settings so that way everybody that clicks on it can view the presentation.
Okay.
So we will make your presentation and your contact information viewable for people watching this asynchronously, or anybody that has attended that would like to go back and draw upon things from today's session.